My name is Thorsten Overgaard. I'm a Danish photographer. I travel the world taking photographs and teaching photography. Today I will talk about quality of light and also quality of audio. Before I get into sound, image quality, quality of light and everything, below the video there is free downloads. You can pause the video now and put in your email and the code, and then you have them in a few minutes. There's a few different downloads. One is my ebook about iconic photographers and the photographs they made, and I also write about how I photograph and why I photograph. And then there is also presets and styles for Lightroom and Capture One. So that's the handful of styles and presets that I use in my editing for black and white and color. And my ideal is basically just that I have certain looks that I want, and I can almost do them with one click. That's the idea, and it's basically what I call the Leica look. So you can use it for Sony, Hasselblad, Canon, Nikon, whatever. This is going to give you the look, so you can say if you like the way that I edit black and white photos, those presets and styles are the key to it, and also for the color and color fidelity that I usually have in my photographs. So just click on the link below, put in your email and the code, and they're free. The presets are $48 normally, today they're free. The book is $37 normally, and today it's free. So I did an article and a video and also a chapter in my book about sharpness in photography that people tend to consistently refer to as the holy grail. They send me emails and they give comments that this is really a subject or a video that they agree highly with. A lot of people in cinema particularly agree with this. And I'll put a link to that video and the article, but fundamentally the essence of it is that you have in photography you have a lot of talk about sharpness, and people like to zoom in and see if the edges are sharp, and that is of course a type of sharpness. What is more relevant to talk about is clarity, how clear something is, and light plays in an important role in that, in the perception of sharpness, that you look at a photograph and you feel that it's sharp, it looks sharp. And if you zoom in, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you have edge light and you have definition of texture and edges with light, it appears really crisp and sharp, and the clarity is very high. So the essence of that is very short said, that what the video and article and the chapter talks about is that you can do a high resolution, or appearing to be a high resolution and high definition, very sharp photo with a 3 or 5 megapixel sensor, and you can make a 100 megapixel sensor photo that doesn't appear crisp and sharp because the light is not there for it. So that's one side of light. Another side of light, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, is quality of light. So quality of light in photography is not how strong the light is. Quality of light is how big is the light source. And also a thing that have a lot to do with it is the acoustics, how the light reflects. I'll get back to that. But let me just get into sound, because I got here the other day, I got this box of headphones, and this is from Dali in Denmark. I'll show you the headphones, they're here. So you can see this is quite big headphones, like this. And there is, to sound, there is acoustics placed in. I have a chapter in my book, Composition in Photography. The photographer is a storyteller, that's the long title of it. I have a chapter about considering light like a concert hall, because that is acoustics, that is how the sound travels around. And the idea with acoustics is that you can sit in a concert hall if it's well designed, well built. You can sit almost anywhere in a concert hall, and the music, either electrical or acoustic from the stage, is elevated to you. And if it's bad acoustics, then you have echo and it sounds like concrete and stuff like that. So acoustics can elevate, and of course that's the same with light. So one thing that have a lot to do with good sound is size. So you can say, for example, I have here in my house, I have big loudspeakers, also Dali loudspeakers from Denmark. Most of my hi-fi is from the 70s and 80s. It's taken a lot of time to compile the correct cables and amplifiers and stuff like that. But they're huge speakers, and also you could say good sound is usually heavy because there's magnetics involved in the speakers. So these ones I got and I put them on, and it just sounds amazing. And that kind of inspired to talk about sound and light quality in the same video. And one of the secrets on this one is that the speaker in here is 5mm in diameter, so that's like this. And then there is the acoustics, the materials in general, like everything surrounding here, but also the actual speaker, what it's made of, and stuff. A lot of technical stuff goes into that. Pretty high tech. And there is here just a thin piece of tactile, almost nothing between the speaker and my ear. And in comparison, I'll take, I have more. This is Danish speakers also. This is from Bang & Olufsen. So this is the anniversary edition. And this is 40mm speakers. They sound great, but you can see here, this is quite differently. There's a lot of metal and plastic involved in this one. And then I have, I'll just show for the fun of it, I have here, it Beats by Dr. Dre, or now it's Apple. This is the Fendi version that I had to have. Also 40mm speakers. Not great sound, but it does the job that you could say you want to dance when you put them on. A lot of bass. This one is very neutral. It's almost electrostatic speakers, which is amazing in headphones. Then you have something here. This is something I used a lot over the years. So this is Sony monitor. So this one doesn't isolate for outside sound. There's no Bluetooth or anything, and they're very lightweight, and they only cost 10% of the other ones I just showed you. But also quite good because they have the big speakers, and I mean they made them for many years now, so it must be a really good product. Then you have in comparison here Apple ones here, which I mean they're tiny, so of course you can't produce the same amazing sound with them, but it does make a difference if you put them inside the ear, if the speaker is sitting here, if it's standing in the room, of course. And also have the Shure headphones I use a lot on airplanes. So here comes an interesting thought, and that is that not everything is high fidelity or high resolution or high quality. So what do I mean with this? So let's look at here. I have here some film from the good old days. So this is negative film from the Pentax 6.7 camera, and here I have something from the Leica 35mm slide film. And the interesting thing is that you kind of, when you've been photographing digital for a while, you kind of look back as analog film that wasn't that great. But then when you take some of your negatives and you look at them, and also when you scan them, you can hardly tell that it's film, meaning that it's not like degraded quality or something, actually really high quality. And also a lot of people would attest to that film have a special look, and they kind of have, but there's some convenience with photographing with the digital. Just as you can say there's a convenience of having digital sound today, you can listen to music on your phone. So you can say we used to have here real albums, and I'll just show you a few because I think they're quite beautiful. And when I really want to listen to music, almost for the soul of it, I'll take out some of my vinyl albums, and even it's more convenient, it's easier to listen to digital. I mean, I have streaming hi-fi, and I have on my phone, and I can stream left, right, and center. That's very convenient, but there's something about how it used to be in analog. And it's very interesting when you take music records like this, that when you pick them up again like 20-30 years later with the current technology of speakers and electronics and everything, you can sense that there's more to the sound. So if something is recorded really well analog in the old days, it actually plays really well, and it actually almost plays, if you can imagine, like it's kind of like you can take a vinyl album like this and you can play it on a modern stereo, and it sounds better that you can do it digitally. So it's almost like a more direct and true signal. And the same way you could say with the film here, with today's technology, you can make it look more soulful. It has more than digital. So quality of light, so let me just throw in some more for you to think about, because then you say not everything has to be high fidelity, and maybe that is where things take a wrong turn, that we think everything has to be super high resolution. We need 60 megapixel, we need 100 megapixel, 150 megapixel, and everything below that is not great, and that's actually not true. But then there's also the soul element of, and I said before, I have big high fidelity speakers and I have state-of-the-art sound equipment, and I have some headphones that can do similar things on airplanes or wherever I am. Then I also have different sound systems around the house depending on what I want to do. So for example, I have also Dali monitors from Denmark by my computer, so when I edit videos or I just want to listen to music, I can play it on there. And funny enough, just next to my computer, I have this one that you could say this is not high fidelity, but it has some things that reminds, this is Danish Bang & Olufsen, and this one can stream music. It actually streams high resolution music, which is better than Bluetooth, and then it has a button here I can pre-program. So number one, I press, I listen to Danish talk radio, and that's like going back to the old days, that now we're just having a cozy time and listening to the radio, and that's what I use this one for. And I'll just show you the speakers. I mean, it's not that this is amazing high fidelity, but the whole feel of this thing is it just makes it great for talk radio. So that's what I use it for. Then I stayed in a hotel in Denmark, and they had Bang & Olufsen loudspeakers in the room, and they had this one, and this is only a Bluetooth speaker, so it's actually not really high definition or anything, because you stream from your phone or your computer, and you do lose maybe 20% of the sound quality by that. And this is not high fidelity, it's mono, there's only one of them, and the speaker even turns one way. But it's just great to put, if you're in the garage and working or doing something, or in the bathroom or whatever, then you put up this one, and it has a lot of bass. It's not high fidelity, but it does that job. It puts you in a mood. So similarly, you could say in photography, you have the original film. Yes, you don't necessarily have to have that, but then you could say sometimes you feel like experiencing something different, and then maybe you go and put on an old 50mm lens like this one from the 70s, or you go find some old Russian lenses that you can fit onto a Leica or Sony or whatever, because there's something about that. So basically that means that high quality is not the only quality. So just to talk or finish maybe the part of music, then there's also CDs, which when they came out they were very convenient. And here I have a special Jimi Hendrix I got from his sound engineer that I photographed, and he signed it. And you say when CDs came out, it was kind of like, wow, this is very clean sound, there's no dust on the record and so on, it's very easy to deal with. And soon you had CD players where you could throw in 20 or 10 or 200 CDs, and you could just play it endlessly. And today we have streaming. You say kind of like, the interesting thing is that with streaming today, high resolution streaming, so you could say Tidal is the best sound. Spotify is not that great sound, but it's very convenient interface to have. But actually Tidal can produce better sound than you can get from a CD, and also that you can, if you rip a CD high resolution, it's not as good sound as you can download it or stream it from Tidal. But then comes the funny thing that you go back to a record and you can actually have even better, or there's more to it sound from a record that you put through. Even there's all this new technology in the meanwhile. The same with photography, and you could say, I'm not saying digital is wrong, because I basically only photograph digital because I don't have time for film and I don't think it's amazing. But I do notice that even you have less resolution supposedly and everything in film, it has something. And I don't think that going back to film is the only way to add soul to your photography. It's also a mindset. So what is quality of light? Well, quality of light is basically the size of the light source. And when you take a photograph, it's important to notice or remember that what you are photographing and also what you see with your eyes is reflection of light. You're not actually photographing the sun, you're photographing the reflections of the sun. And it doesn't, maybe you don't even have the sun because it's overcast, but you have daylight or some sort of light, and that reflects on an object. And that is how the object appears. If we take this camera here, then it's black, but as I turn it, you will see that the shape changes. I mean, it is the same shape, but now you see different surface and you see different details, and that is the light. That's reflection of light. There is no light source in this picture except the reflection of light. A little bit like the same with acoustics, that what you hear from the music is, well, it's vibrations from instruments, but then it's reflecting off walls, or it's reflecting off the speaker walls and so on. So that's one element, and then when you see that the light source you're working with is actually maybe an overcast sky, or it's reflection from a wall on the other side of the street. And you could say, for example, here this is mainly a daylight setting, so I have glass here around to the garden, and I have one daylight LED to soften up some of the light, but basically depends on daylight, and it goes all the way from here. And you would say, if I had a daylight studio, I would have built it so I could cover off something, and I would have it also above me. So that's a daylight studio. And there's a reason, apart from electricity, that you use daylight studios in the past. It's just because it's beautiful light you can make with it. Then you could say it's not very dependent, because then there's overcast, then there's rain, then there's sunshine. And actually, when I do these videos, I have to take into account it's going to be rain today, or how is the weather going to be, and I can't start it too early, and I have to finish sometime before sunset, or it gets too dark for the video. The size of the light source, that is the quality. So if you imagine that you have this camera now here does have a lot of soft light coming in from all over the place. There's no direct sunlight on this camera, and on my face either. So that is what you would call a good quality of light. And then you can say, well, but it's fun to use flashes, or it's fun to use film light. And it is, but basically what you try to do with film light is that you're trying to make daylight, but you're just making it more stable. And I have here, I have here a spotlight. So if I take this spotlight, and you can see now my face is totally overexposed. Of course, because there's more light, but this is a very small light source. It's basically just this size because it's LED spotlight. Then what I can do is I can make the light source bigger, because I can put a silk screen like this, and now you'll see the light is much softer. And that is basically, you can say, now I made almost all of this into a light source. So you imagine that now I have a big silk screen, or I just have soft light reflecting from a wall. That's going to be high quality. And what it does is that it beats out details. And I'm going to just remove this again, because apart from it's blinding me, it's also overexposing everything here. So that is the quality of light that you're looking for is big light source, and that's why you could say when you go outside on an overcast day in Munich or wherever you are, London, where there's a lot of overcast relative, for example, compared to Florida, it might look dull to the eye, but when you take a photograph, especially black and white, but you take a photograph, you can see a lot of detail. So you actually have high quality of detail. And then if you can have an edge light coming in, often you have maybe a little bit of low sun or some sun coming through from the clouds, or you have reflecting from a wall, then you have edge, and that's going to make it appear more detailed and sharp than it actually is. I mean, it's basically the same details you have, but it's just how do they communicate to the eye? How well can you see the details? So that is a very important element of light, is the size of the light. Photography means to paint with light or write with light. So light is extremely key in photography. And there is basically nothing else to understand in photography that light, to see good light, and also when you can say in the technical side of photography, the only thing you actually have to master is how to capture the light, so you have the correct exposure. And I wrote my book, Finding the Magic of Light, and that is different examples. I'm actually making it very simple. The book is around 100 pages and a lot of examples and text to explain what do I mean with magic of light, how do you find magic of light, and what is light. I mean, that's something that even Einstein was wondering about, because nobody really knows if light is particles or if it's wavelengths. It doesn't really matter. When you recognize good light, you recognize it, and that's basically what that book is about. There is another important part of quality of light that is often omitted, and you could say one thing is that on your camera you can set the white balance, and white balance is meant to be set so you have daylight. So long story short, you could say at the middle of the day in basically all countries you have white light, and that's called 5400 Kelvin. So it's simply just the color temperature that is white light. Color temperature is hard to see for the eye because your eye adjusts for it all the time. Once you start seeing it, you can actually see, and you can notice that if you go in, for example, in a living room or an office or a restaurant at night, they have tungsten light or artificial light, and that is 3200. Actually is yellow, sometimes orange, reddish light. And the eye adjusts for it like this, so you don't see it, you just perceive everything as white light. So when you sit in the restaurant and read the menu, you're looking at a white piece of paper. But once you get into photography, you start working with color temperature, you will notice that this is actually yellow. It has a yellow cast, or it might be even very yellow. So that's the first thing you adjust for, that you adjust for color temperature in your photograph. And what happens when you adjust for color temperature is, for example, my skin tone is set right now for daylight. It doesn't really matter if it's 3200 or 8000 Kelvin here, or 5400. It is 4800 actually. But you can't really tell for this because it's adjusted so that my skin appears as if it was daylight 5400. So that's like the standard for everything is 5400 daylight is what you adjust to, because that's how the colors looks correct to the eye. Anything off of that, you could say if this video was recorded so I'm too yellow or red in the face, everything is going to have a yellow, red, orange tint, and it makes everything kind of look dirty and old or whatever it makes it look, but it's not correct. So you could say it has to be truthfully, and that's what you do with the white balance. Then you have the light itself. Apart from that, it has a color temperature, a Kelvin. It also have different elements of colors. And here I have a color meter, and this one is special because it actually measures the different colors, how much is of different colors. And this one corresponds to the MacBeth color chart. That is kind of like the standard for checking how accurate are the colors. And you could say this one is fairly good. there's two here that's very important. One is the skin tone and the other one is the red. If they're like low, then you can't get the correct skin tone and you can't get the correct colors. So that would be the thing that if you ever wondered that, for example, you take photos with flash or you do it with LED light or indoor or in an office building with fluorescent light, and you can say a lot of buildings, cars and everything these days have LED light that can basically, well, it can be dirty and it can be anything, but it can also be weird color temperature, and it also often blinks, so that it gives a lot of challenges, and especially stage light and theaters and music scenes that have changed to LED light because it doesn't produce heat and it's lower energy, and you can actually often you can change the color, but it's not always true colors. And that is the thing that you measure with this color meter here, is you measure how much is of the true colors. And if there's a little red and the skin tone is too low, then you can get true colors, and that is particularly visible in skin tones. That something is off and you think everything is right, I measured the Kelvin and so on, but it just means that you have a light source that produced too little red. And daylight from the sun, whether it's overcast or sunshine or whatever, have everything close to 100%. So this is called CIA, so that is color rendering index, which basically is, so it just tells you how much is of each color tone, you could say. And if they're not all there, then you just can't get the colors right, and then you can do whatever you want, and you can buy the biggest camera and the best lenses, you can spend all the time you want on it, you just can't get the colors right. There's two types of correct light. One is daylight, which is used in the movie industry, and the other one is tungsten. So tungsten is 3200, but tungsten you basically have to go back to light bulbs that are almost illegal now or hard to get. They produce clean 3200 that have a high color rendering index. And when you use tungsten light, you can adjust the white balance on the camera to 3200, and then it is just as daylight, and because it has the color rendering index correctly or full on, the colors looks right even you change it from 3200 to daylight. So that is a very important part of quality of light, and you can say as long as you use daylight coming in through a window or outside, it's very easy to make something that looks beautiful. So these are high fidelity headphones, and these are not. So what does that mean? I had somebody looking strange at me the other day when I said high fidelity. You could say if you have big speakers and you're into music, you know what high fidelity is because it's hi-fi, and that means high fidelity. But basically, high fidelity or fidelity means the exactness of something. It is how loyal is it to the original. And when you think of it like that, in terms of photography and sound, then suddenly it makes sense that you can say, well, you can have an old record like this, and I mean it's recorded with whatever technology was available at that point, but you put it on a record player today, and it just sounds great, and it's not like you're missing something. It actually feels like you're in the room and the person is there in front of you and the instruments are in front of you. Even you could say if you don't listen on high fidelity equipment, but you actually listen on Apple headphones or whatever, and that is basically, I think what you enjoy is the loyalty to the original. And where things takes a wrong turn is when we start to think that the definition of a sensor or a definition how many lines a lens can resolve is important. And I mean that is a fun game to collect equipment and fiddle around with things and see this is how much detail I can beat into this frame, and I can even get it out on a print and people can go close and they can see the details and everything. But does it give you an emotional impact? Is it loyal to the emotion that you felt when you saw that. So let's say you go to Portugal, Porto, beautiful city, and you feel something and you want to capture that. And I think it's a wrong turn when you try to, I mean, we're already looking at reality and we see every detail. So why would you make a copy of something that already exists? You can just go look at it. What's interesting is what is the emotion you felt and you would want to communicate, or the idea that you want to communicate when you have the possibility to it. And you can say all this quality of light, the light source and the color temperature and the cleanness of the light plays in that you can actually able to communicate it. And it's kind of like recordings. You have some recordings, old and new, is really bad. Some are really great. And that somehow comes through almost no matter how you listen to it or what you listen to it on. And the same with photography. It's very few photographs where you actually want to go close and see, did this guy capture all details? It doesn't really matter. What you see first when you see a photograph, what hits you first is the emotional impact. And then when you study it further, you might discover that it's really blurry, it wasn't focused enough, or it's taken with a small sensor or even an iPhone and so on. And that you say also, I'm not going to go into AI, artificial intelligence, but you could say that is a difference between analog, that you make something in a very simple way and it's very loyal to the original, whereas you could say you put it through a computer, it's not very loyal to the original because nobody knows how many photographs this is compiled of, and that it gives like this soulless feeling that you can almost recognize in any AI photo. You see that something is missing, and that is the soul, that is your emotional expression that isn't in it. And then how would you get an emotional impact from something that doesn't actually have any soul or any emotional impact put into it? That was about all I had to say today. I hope this gave you something to think about, and also I hope that you learned something, and I hope mainly it simplified life and made you realize that you can basically do whatever you want to with whatever tool you want to use. It can actually make an emotional impact, and that is the bottom line. You can make high fidelity photographs, and that's what it's all about. Remember, below the video there is links to free downloads. Until I see you next time, remember to always wear a camera, and thank you for watching.